I reviewed the minutes of the activities last week and I move to approve those minutes.
Any questions, concerns on the minutes?
None for me.
See none? We have a motion we will vote on. I call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also vote aye. Thank you. Run down consent agenda today. Under agreements, contract bid awards, the first two, 1 and 2 are documents put out by our treasurer to comply with RCW. As a requirement that these go out once a year. It's a 2024 affidavit of property tax refunds. It's property taxes we've forgiven. It could be seniors that fit the program and stuff. She tells us in 2023 that amounted to about right around $791,000. Collectible personal property tax, that could be the examples giving, you have a mobile home in a mobile home park. They move it but there's some stuff owned, but you can't find them and just stuff you end up writing out, or a business goes out and takes equipment and you aren't able to collect on things. Didn't amount to much, about 49,000 last year. So that's what those two are. Then the third one is an agreement with Astound Business Solution. This is a group we've used under different names for over 15 years to handle some of our dedicated internet access, dark fiber and associated services. So this extends that agreement from January of 2024 for 5 years to January of 2029 at an annual cost of $18,000. And we had a voucher for payments of an incurred expense for Drainage Improvement District number 1 for $3,411.89. That's it for consent agenda, unless people have questions or comments on that.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of today's consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion to approve today's consent agenda. One last call for comments, questions. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also vote aye. Thank you. One motion item today.
Hey, good morning, Gina James, Health and Human Services. I have one motion item on the agenda today. This is a school, it's called School to Work contract. It's with the state Division of Vocational Rehabilitation out of the DSHS office. Just a little bit of history about how this contract came to us. We currently have an adult employment program that serves individuals who have a developmental disability to obtain and maintain employment in the community. That program starts after high school. At this point, what the School to Work program is aimed to do is to start that employment process and that work before students graduate high school. So it brings that age down to 2021 when they're in their last year of high school, so that if they want to work and obtain employment while they're still finishing high school, that there would be supports in place for them to be able to do that and transition seamlessly into the adult program. There was a bill that passed a couple years ago in legislation that directed the state to establish these programs across the state. And so the state's been reaching out and working with counties to try and do that. So they've reached out with this contract. This particular contract is considered a program development contract. So it's to reimburse staff costs to engage with the state and local partners to look at a School to Work program locally, what that could look like, start really diving into referral system, what the need is, what it looks like, what we currently have for transition services and how they can work together to enhance the transition services for students who are wanting to work prior to leaving high school. We would anticipate down the road, if we develop this program, that the state would present a direct service contract that would be similar to the adult employment program that we have now. Again, just bringing the age down to prior to exit of high school. This particular service, we do have some transition services currently available locally, but they are serving students who have a lower level of support needs. So this particular school to work service could serve those students who are considered medium or high acuity, which require a higher level of support needs and may not be able to work fully independently. So that would be the kind of the population that this program is aiming to serve. I know we've had a couple different conversations about this, and I'm happy to answer further questions, or if there's stakeholders that we're interested in hearing from to talk more about this program. I know it's new and we want to make sure it would be right for our community. So happy to take the time we need to do that, and curious, interested in hearing from the public as well, and how we'd like to move forward. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Gina, we had a nice discussion as you reviewed this with us yesterday. I'm still a little not really confused, but not sure. I'm very supportive of a program that is a 14-month program, and they want to spend $250,000 to develop a program. Help me understand how that makes any sense at all. That's an awful lot of money for not even service to provide delivering services.
Sure. So the funding amount, as you mentioned, I think, sorry.
241,000. Yeah.
Yes, 241,000. Right now, the agreement start date has August 1 of 2023 through March of 2025. So about a year and a half right in there. Obviously, that some time has passed. We're already almost to March.
They haven't been working yet, right? It
No.
hasn't started yet.
No,
Okay.
no, we've had some initial conversations with some stakeholders, but no, the funding amount, I would say, for one, I wouldn't anticipate we would spend all of that. I don't think we would come close. And it is cost reimbursement. So we would only be requesting reimbursement for what we actually do towards developing this program. The amount is fairly high. I think there was dedicated funding in the legislature, and it got kind of divvied out. And so it's pretty high. So I wouldn't anticipate using all of it. And we could also look at adjusting the dates on the contract and the funding amount as well.
So it's more of a placeholder because the allocation was set for last
right.
August.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a great conversation yesterday, and I really appreciated it. But I as I said yesterday, this thing was on my mind all weekend because I'm trying to figure out if we have a need, and then how big that need is. And I'm not to start a new state program without actually knowing if we can't serve what need we may have with our existing stuff doesn't resonate real well with me. And we talked about that yesterday, because I know now what I'm told is we have a STEP program, and these are probably rough numbers that serve 18 to 21-year-olds, and there was 28 in the program in Calhoun County. We have a YES program that is through the schools, it's through the ESD, and then start as early as 14, and there was about 136. So I'm trying to figure out, when are there kids that are running through these programs, and then when they run out, they don't have any place else to go. And I don't know that. I don't know if parents have come and say, hey, I don't have any place else to go, or it feels to me like we could get this data without getting the state involved with this and to me, I'd rather see them tweak programs we already have than a whole new program. It just, I've said this before, I think somebody wanted a governor's pin, so you get a governor's pin by having a new bill in and I just not sure it was necessary. So
Sure.
for one, and I think, I don't want to speak for Commissioner Weber, but it sounds like maybe a little more information or actually trying to dig deeper into the need
Sure.
to make sure that we're doing the right thing. It gets, and I said it yesterday, these are always difficult because it gets translated that the commissioners don't want to help these people and that really couldn't be farther from the truth. What we want to do is do the right thing
Mhm.
and do it well. And
Yeah.
I'm not convinced this is the right thing at this point in time.
Sure. And I think I'll just add too, I know the YES program and the STEPS program, they're great programs, both of them great programs. One of the differences with this new program versus what we currently have is the support need. So there might be a student referred to STEPS or YES, but they might not be eligible because they need support or assistance in their daily activities. And they may not be eligible then for those programs because of that level of support. When we look at the students who have graduated that were not enrolled in employment services, they are the medium and higher acuity individuals, which means they require a higher level of support needed. So I know that's part of what this program is trying to address, is making those employment opportunities available for all students, regardless of their support level needed. But I'd be happy to connect. I think I mentioned this yesterday with individuals in these programs. And so we can hear more about exactly who they serve and what they see and what they might be able to share with us about the need and what we might be missing in our community.
For one, personally, I would love to have that sit down and really try to understand what it is we're doing and we're trying to
Sure.
fix.
Yep, happy to do that.
There's a lot of material in here. I'm not sure how to begin. I very seldom am. I might point out that absent to any of this discussion has been what exactly is the benefit to the public? You know, we currently have calls for sustainability. You mustn't use resources of the earth if they're not sustainable, that kind of thing. Well, that applies for every dollar of taxpayer funds also. And we can't really appropriately examine a program if we don't know it's going to cost us this much and we're going to get back at least that much. That's sustainable. And we never do that. This is another example of that. This is also another example of Ronald Reagan's, it wasn't an epiphany, maybe an epigram about the nearest thing to eternal life as a government program. And it's true, things really either grow or die. They very seldom stay the same. So if you're a government program, you have to conjure up ways to make things grow. Hence, we've got all kinds of programs like gap analysis. I get driven crazy by some of the buzzwords. We have a welfare system that says, well, there might be somebody out there that needs welfare and doesn't know about it. Or there's a program we could pay for them. So let's go out there and find that individual. And this smacks a little bit of that. It also smacks of, let me see if I can do a program and then I can say, well, that's really only for people that are left-handed violin players in this case, then
Now he's getting personal.
and so we start to compartmentalize stuff. So one thing I would ask as a question, is, what is the impetus to the program? Now, did we in any way call up Olympia and say, we need this program? Not that you know of, right?
No, did we personally know statewide, there's been a lot of conversation and advocacy for getting that age down. I think we talked about this at one of our previous workshops. The adult employment can only start at 21 or after they graduate high school. And, it might make more sense to just drop that eligibility requirement down. But that didn't happen. Instead, it came out as sort of a separate bill with,
Well, that would lead into the next question I would ask that I really don't. I see no difference between what you must do for a 23-year-old or a 21-year-old. I see all these distinctions are rather bizarre to me. I never care about special group memberships. I care about capabilities, and they're not always lined up with age. Then I want to remind people back on the dollars side of things. Society has already likely spent $250,000 on each of these individuals for their K through 12 education. So it's really important for us to argue how it is that this program is going to help us go into the future. And you mentioned that there were other programs trying to lower the eligibility to 21, let's say, or 18, and that was nixed there. Well, when you think about all the rules and regulations, it's killed every good thing we could ever have, and I could talk for a long time on that. So I will stop there, but at least I think I'm going to stop there. Yeah, and so I support what the chairman said. If this determined the status of the free world, I would be interested in pursuing it more. I don't think we're there. But at this point, I would want to hear from the public also.
Well, you may be done talking, but I have to rejoin because as a left-handed violin player, I benefited greatly from public education to hone my skills in a lot of different areas. And, I'm proud of the fact that I've been able to make a contribution to this community, including volunteering to play in the symphony for over 50 years. That's significantly different than dealing with people who have developmental disabilities. There's not a cure. And so the state and most societies say that there is an obligation on the part of society to assist those folks who have those disabilities lifetime, one way or the other. The old-fashioned way was you lock them up in an institution and hope, family may come and visit, but that's why we dealt with them. We don't do that anymore. But I also agree, we need more information about the details of this program to help the folks who've fallen through the cracks, who may be able to get gainful employment with the right kind of assistance. So with that in mind, so we have something on the table to discuss. I'd like to refer this back to staff to set up a workshop with answers to some of the questions that we've been asking, with some resource people from the local area that can identify what are the needs and what are the costs and what are the long-term expectations, among the other questions that we've talked about.
It's always difficult to compare, particularly for an older person, what it was like before and what it is now. And I think we're always in danger of comparing apples to oranges. The the moral fiber of the nation has changed over time. And so the times when some of us were in high school are very different. It's JFK kind of started to hint at and ask not what your country can do for you kind of thing we're all familiar with. So trying to draw an analogy there is interesting. When you think about governments that decide whether you are handicapped or not, some rather nasty societies come to mind, including what I might have as a conversation with Alexander Solzhenitsyn about what it was that he was deficient of that required the government to explain it to him in a concentration camp. But so it's, remember what what the government can do for you, it can do to you. And that's a lesson people have forgotten. And then I'll repeat, it may have been beneficial for, it may be beneficial for 2 or 3 people, but it doesn't come at zero cost. It comes out of the cost of a young person, say, trying to start a family and needing not to pay as much on the taxes. That money isn't free. If it doesn't come from the taxes, it comes from our rather small debt that we have, 34 trillion. I mean, who's counting, right?
Comments? Anybody want to chime in?
I believe I hear you guys all saying something similar. But I guess it seems like there's enough programs out there that maybe rather than starting a whole new program, some minor tweaks to existing programs would be a lot less expensive and a lot more efficient with people that are already doing this kind of stuff. Because of an age limit or restriction that might be in the existing programs, just to adjust that, it seems like the added cost for a tweak in the age or the requirements to get another program to work, it would be a lot less cost, especially if you start a new program, you get up pretty soon, you got all of some new administrative costs and everything else that's going to go into it that you're never going to get away from. Existing programs could probably make minor adjustments and pick up what this is aimed at. I don't know all the programs that we're talking about involved, but my goodness, I can't believe we don't have enough programs to cover this now with maybe minor adjustments. So I'm all in favor of you getting more information and pursuing this, hopefully at a much less cost than what I see here. Anything else?
Good morning. I just want to add that I was a school nurse for years and worked in different areas of the schools where they had programs that reached out to employers through like the health occupations class that I taught. And it gave kids opportunities to get out there. And I thought they did a good job of working with the community and the resources out there through the schools. And it seems like they already have a good network to do a lot of that kind of thing, to work in the community with the employers, because they have people that already are doing that. And it seems like that would just be a nice expansion. And they already have that whole system of supervisors and people that work with families that already know the kids, so that the families don't have to go into, no offense, a government agency to talk to the different people about what their child's doing. And it just seems like maybe a more welcoming environment to work with that kind of a program. Thank you.
Having a brother who has, is this on?
Yeah.
Yeah, having a brother who has Down
Is the
syndrome.
green light on? It's
Yeah,
on.
it's
Okay.
Yeah. Having a brother who has Down syndrome, I feel like I have quite a personal connection to this. And I have a very skeptical view of any and all government programs that say that they help disabled people. First of all, it's not our place to say who's disabled and who's not. I truly feel that. We've had experience with many other people who have Down syndrome in their family, And there's a big difference between those who have been in part of government programs and those who have not. Obviously, there's different ranges of that trisomy condition, but when it comes to the treatment that my brother had, he was treated the same as all of us other kids growing up. My mom and dad made a very clear point that he had the same chores, cleaning the house, and his treatment.
You're making a distinction of how you handled it at home, not in some other agency.
Correct.
Okay.
And that was my parents' approach. And of course, every parent has the right to choose their own approach. But what I've seen is those who chose the path of maximum government intervention, in many cases tended to have much worse outcomes, like almost the worst outcome you can have, which is an individual who's never able to truly sustain themselves in any even limited fashion. Obviously, Mr. Bear needs a little bit of help applying for a job. He actually just got a new job at Safeway. My parents had to help him with the online application, but he was able to go to the interview and interview for the position. And that's one of the problems that I have with a lot of these school to work programs is these programs take kids out of an environment that has nothing to do with work, where they have very low expectations. It's, in my opinion, the tyranny of low expectations that makes them have such poor outcomes, and then helps them and holds their hand into getting a job. Now, I think we all know that getting a job requires a person to put themselves out there, be vulnerable, and get out and do the legwork of finding a job. And that's up to their guardians and loved ones, parents, friends, and siblings even, to help them out and get a job. And these kind of programs are worse than nothing. Like, to a program, worse than nothing in all of my experience. And I can tell you that Mr. Bear, who is the independence to wake up at 7 a.m. when he was working at the hotel, walk over to Circle K, get a cup of coffee, and then go to work and work till 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and then walk back home all on his own. It's not something that would have happened if he had a government program holding his hand from the day he was so-called graduated, which unfortunately, it seems to me, a lot of these social programs seem to increase social problems to increase the amount of workload to occupy all the social workers available.
Anything else? Okay, I think we're gonna just refer that back.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep, okay,
We'll
thank
do
you,
that. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Gina.
thank you.
Before I head into public comment, I will tell you about a workshop coming up tomorrow at 2:30, Rural Public Facilities Workshop. The rural public facility is in rural counties, you get 0.9% rebate from the state sales tax, which I think is 6.5%. And that can go to rural counties and it can be used for infrastructure and stuff. It's been around for a long time, and our finance person is going to kind of go over that program on Wednesday. Show what we've done over I think since 99 and 98. I think it's been around a while. The legislature just extended that to the year 2054. So she'll have some projections of what we expect to see in it this year, what's been accomplished with it, what the cities and towns have been able to do. And so anyway, that's what that workshop's about tomorrow at 2:30. With that, I would open it up to public comment.
A question on that. So in the agenda, it says tomorrow, 2:30, we're doing rural public facilities. That's what that is?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
As opposed to the public facilities district. That's the next week.
That's the
That's-
next week. Yeah.
That's a different program.
You know, for a left-handed violin player, you're not too bad.
Yeah, I get it every once in a while.
I'm on his left side, so he gets it.
So the Rural Public Facilities Program has been used to help local governments extend utilities to generate development that generates jobs and in places of employment. I think one of the
Yeah.
latest ones that we did was to provide some assistance to Castle Rock to extend facilities as part of that development at the south end of town. One of the other examples of extending services that we did was to help the Port of Kalama and the City of Kalama extend water service to meet fire flow regulations that made it possible for a hotel to get located at the Port of Kalama a few years ago. A modestly successful little endeavor called New Miniman's came as a result of the program. So it's been a pretty successful program. Those are just two of many different examples of things that we've done with this money from the state, because we've been classified as economically distressed.
If I could mention, thanks for the reminder, the hotel, when it opened up, I think overran its target by a factor of 2. The marketplace has overrun its target by about a factor of 3 in terms of commerce, the dollars flowing through. They know how to do stuff pretty well, and yeah, they could not have done that without the plumbing that we paid for in part.
Yeah. I've mentioned before, I think the port in Klamath down there, they've done a great job with all that. I mean, they have ships coming in now to drop people off, and they have some great plans down there. I just expect to see that. I mean, that's a lot of economic vitality coming in from outside the county participating. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, if people don't know, the American Cruise Lines has a dock there, and they have an exclusive arrangement for a modest amount of time. Not, I don't know, it may expire in 2 years or a year or something like that, and then other cruise lines can come through. It's really an interesting development there.
So with that pitch on tomorrow afternoon's meeting, we're open for public comment, if there is any. Yeah, yeah.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm responding to the ridiculous editorial in the Daily News the other day about the health board and the kind of slander that went on and the misinformation they were promoting. I just want to reiterate some facts that are now in the public knowledge if somebody actually has the intellectual curiosity to actually follow through. Fauci has admitted under testimony that he knew masks would not work. This is under testimony. He has admitted that they made up the 6-foot rule. He also admitted that they didn't really think the vaccines would work, but they were going to give it a try. We also now know that the FDA is being sued for their ridiculous propaganda about ivermectin, and there are now numerous studies out showing ivermectin is actually effective, and other countries implemented it early on in the pandemic. I'm putting that in quotation marks, and basically have used it since and quite effectively. It's a very, very, very low risk drug, and the propaganda was absolutely insane. They're trying to get that out of court. A recent development also is the CDC was sued in court because they were withholding vaccine information that was very detrimental to the vaccine program, and they have now been forced. One release in February, another in April is coming out. It is going to expose how many deaths actually occurred that are attributed to the mRNA vaccines. It's really devastating. We also now, a whistleblower in New Zealand released information, and he's going to go to jail for it. He actually released information. He was a government data analyst. He found that it was significant numbers of deaths in the New Zealand population who had had the vaccine, people dying days and weeks after receiving the vaccine who were in normal health. They, from this data, true data scientists and actuarial experts have determined that there were probably 17 million deaths worldwide from the mRNA vaccines. This is a reality. This is what is actually being posited by serious professionals. Every university in the world of any standing, whether it's Oxford, Stanford, MIT, Harvard, Princeton, have all come out, Brown University, have all come out with studies decrying how the pandemic, quotation marks, was handled. And one of the most serious, glaring issues about this so-called pandemic was that in 2019 and 2020, there were no real increase in excess deaths. In a pandemic, there are always increases in excess deaths. The increases in excess deaths happen astronomically. After 21, 22, and 23, we are seeing increased actual numbers of serious numbers of unexplained deaths by meaning all-cause mortality, from vasculitis to clots to with strokes to sudden heart attacks. It's turbo cancers, and their serious scientists are attributing this to the vaccine. And we have a lot of ignorant people still running around watching mainstream media, believing a lot of misinformation. They lie to you about everything. They lie to you about the alternative medicine. They lie to you about the fact that we now know it was created in a lab and that our government paid for it. That's a reality. That's not conspiracy theory. We know that's fact. And we know that we have to really seriously think about how we handle these things in the future and not to be, misled by people with a serious agenda that have possibly even depopulation in mind. When you're looking at those numbers of deaths, I can't help but speculate that there's a depopulation agenda when you actually hide this from the public. And I want to thank the health board for their courage in bucking all the propaganda, all the nonsense, and all the dangerous lies that have gone on. And I appreciate it. And I hope you do find a health board, a MD to run the health department who will actually think independently and actually look at real data and actually truly protect the public and not just lie to them. Thank you.
I'd like to add something to that. Yeah, it's sort of curious that we had this era of mandates, and I've never met a human being that had to be mandated to do something for the benefit of the human being. Now, I'm speaking about an adult and not a 3-year-old, where you have to go through some teaching. We struggled here to try and get as much information out on the table and public balanced. The trust should be in the people making their own decision. The mandates were just horrible right from the start. And we should not forget that lesson. We shouldn't have ignored it to start with. But nevertheless, I suspect that there might be more coming down the line at some point. We need to stick together and demand that the truth just be laid out on the table and let the individual decide. Government involved between the doctor and the patient is not a good thing.
Any other? Oh, okay.
One of the things that comes with getting older is you no longer believe people that wear white coats or black robes. And one of the things that I understand is that at the worldwide level, a lot of these people are involved in policy and everything else, are great believers in eugenics. And this has been going on for a very long time. So when I get people like Bill Gates running around who's financially involved in pharmaceuticals and everything else, telling everybody that they need to do this. I have absolutely no credibility in that guy and people at that level and think that way. So that's my first litmus test. If I got people like that running around telling me to do something, I'm going to do just the opposite. The other thing that I wanted to comment, in fact, this was back to Professor Bill again. Last night, Bill showed up at one of our meetings and he was
Just a
charting
second,
along.
please.
Pardon me?
You were saying the previous speaker at the podium there.
Yes, yeah, Professor Bill. Professor Bill was carting along a bag, and in that bag, there was a single meal from a fast food restaurant that cost him $25. So we're talking about the local economy. So think in terms of, I think Bill said last year that same meal was $14, something like that. 18, okay, there we go. So that gives you an indication of what's going on in the local economy. I was over at Panera yesterday or last evening for dinner. There was no more than 6 people in the restaurant. So things are not well. And, you know, that kind of relates back to jobs for some of the people that we were talking about. Those jobs may not even be there. So.
Any other? Okay, I see none online. We will adjourn. Thank you.